as we talk about cross-pollinating for performance. We're going to keep this short, simple, and sweet for the benefit of all of you. So we'll quickly move on to Aarthi. If you could say, what is your take on cross-pollination? I know, for instance, that Bureau as a company does a lot of work on research and consulting, and you are conceptualizing some good initiatives in recruitment. Why don't you talk about that?
Sure. So I'll cut straight to the chase. I had a little fluff planned around it. So I'm going to specifically talk about an example in recruitment that we've done from a cross-pollination angle. So all of us have probably heard of how recruitment is compared to sales, right? So recruitment, you're essentially selling jobs, you're selling dreams. So something that we've tried to do internally at Bureau, we have tried to customize our entire recruitment cycle to mirror a sales cycle. So a sales cycle starts with scouting, you establish contact, you negotiate deals and you close. So our entire recruitment philosophy is aligned around the same thing. So what we do is, to be able to train recruitment professionals on lead generation, how to establish first contact, how to sell. And finally, when closure happens, we often forget that, the comparison between HR and sales ends there. So one thing that we've started, thinking about, but we're yet to conceptualize, is to also pay our recruitment folks like we pay sales. So something that I'm doing internally is to, I think some of my recruitment team is here, is to make the pay for recruiters equivalent to sales folks, right? So instead of paying them out variable, we pay them out commissions against, turnaround times that sales folks exceed. So when Shashi told me about cross-pollination, this was the first thing that came to mind, because we're taking two seemingly unrelated concepts, one in sales and, trying to reinforce it into a process like recruitment. Yeah?
It was really short and sweet, Aarthi.
Yeah, but I'm hungry too.
but I think what I take as a takeaway from your initiative is, it's a clear horses for courses, isn't it? Yeah? Good. I'm going to move on to the two entrepreneurs. I have tremendous respect because the kind of work that you're doing, Pramad and Ranga, it's not easy to start a company and then be a glorious, successful one at that. So I'll move to Pramad. Your business is about analytics, and I'm sure you will be spanning a wide gamut of organizations, right? Have you had any cross-pollination experience of taking in something from one domain or an industry and kind of fitting it into something else? It might seem unrelated to the surface level, but might have actually yielded a lot of results.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's pretty much the foundation for a lot of the work that we do. Because for us, the fodder essentially is data. So we are looking at data. We're always looking at what the data is telling us in terms of insights or patterns. And lots of times the customers that we work with span different sectors. So it happens very often that we look at how are we analyzing customers, retail customers, for instance, who walk into a store and who buy, maybe just toiletries, or they buy food, or they buy snacks. And we're trying to understand the algorithms that we would use for predicting these kind of customer behavior. How can that be applied for a large technology company, for instance, for whom their customers are, again, in turn, enterprises? So the same kind of themes that you use for analyzing individual customers can be applied for large companies as well. Maybe I'll kind of give you this, explain this better using an
maybe
example.
Maybe you should do that. Maybe you could elaborate on the case that you're talking about.
Elaborate, for instance. So one of the common things that we spend a lot of time on today is on social media, trying to understand what are customers saying in the social media, trying to understand who are influencers in the social media, what's the kind of common buzz that you hear in social media. And the way large companies analyze this to see, hey, is my brand, how's my brand performing? It could be soft drink companies such as Pepsi, for instance. How are consumers consuming Pepsi compared to how are they consuming Coke? Now, you get a lot of that buzz by just listening into chatter on Facebook, on Twitter. Now you can use the same principles and marry it to an internal kind of a process such as HR, right? So you could actually use similar themes to look at Glassdoor or pay scale to see what are your employees saying about you, right? And more recently, a very live example I can think of is, what happened in Chennai itself, closer home during, the Chennai floods. We had a team of volunteers from Latent View who were actually helping Chennai Corporation look at Twitter data and understand buzz from what citizens are saying. And the themes we were able to help them with was around garbage. Where does garbage need to be picked up from? Or which are areas where there are potential signs of disease? Because that's the next thing as a part of rehabilitation and aftermath. So I think these are very immediate examples I can think of.
In fact, cross-pollination of, using data and understanding where to put your CSR activity into is something that you may want to take that from. Very interesting. You don't expect to be so data-driven in a time of crisis, but Chennai actually has shown that it helps. It helps immensely. You had a lot of energy of somebody famously said that there are more volunteers than actually victims. Harnessing them, giving them certain direction is just not easy. And it's a difficult task, because I know for one that I was taken back to my school days, the habit of, match the following. All that I could do was aggregate where the supplies are required and aggregate where the supplies are available, and then kind of match the following. And it's not an easy job to do. I completely relate to what you're saying. Ranga, I was talking about, as we were getting on stage, I was talking about this pun that there are no free lunches in business except on the day of induction.
Right.
I know as a company, Niyamo is a fantastic organization to look up to emulate. You've grown in about 6 years from a startup to about 1,500 employees, catering to a lot of clients across the globe. So, and I know that you are doing something good in onboarding, right? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah.
If I can just add, why onboarding is important in the current scheme of things, and how your initiative is actually creating a disruption there.
Right. So, before that, let me take this 20 seconds to kind of, appreciate what Raghuraman just spoke here. I mean, thank you, sir. It was, there's a lot of cross-pollination I need to induct in my organization, what you spoke. Hard task to kind of keep audience glued after a session like that. I mean, because I'm not sure, it's like after a first day, first show of Rajini, I mean, and then you come back and do what, right? So I was just thinking in my mind, what do I do? But thank you for all the insight. There's a lot of cross-pollination, right? For me to go back in my organization and tell them, you guys are much better off than what a lot of people are going through, and show leadership. But in Niyamo, we are a HR services company. We work with global organizations, help them improve their technology and standardize their processes, specifically for organizations which are, multi-country. So that's what we do for a living. So one of the processes that we deliver is around onboarding, right? So onboarding is a very key process. We do right from hire to retire, but onboarding, cross-pollination, I wanted to talk about two areas, onboarding and related on background screening, because background screening comes first and then onboarding. So one of the things that we worked across organizations, and then we are very much like the Sabari Ramar kind of thing, where we, kind of bite the fruit and give it to Ramar, because we needed to internally institutionalize if it is working and then go to the customer, right? Otherwise, because you need to sell what you're eating, right? So one of the things that we thought in onboarding was getting to be very, very monotonous, right? You come in, fill forms, and then go through some classroom and then get inducted. And there's a data that the first 90 days is when you lose your new employee, because if he's lost. We came up with several things. One of them that I can cross-pollinated was gamification on onboarding, right? First, we tried it internally. What we did is we kind of came up with, as soon as a person walked in, no forms, fill, nothing. We just gave him a bunch of questions and then tell him, go around the organization and find it. internally in Namo. This could be what was the CEO's favorite food, who was the guy who wears yellow color, who is called Tala within the organization, whatever. So the people who were inducted that day are going around the organization trying to find out who is Tala first, and then introduce him and ask him what do you do and stuff like that. So what happened in the whole process is now there was a lot of chemistry that was spoken in the first session. So he's already getting used to the organization for lunch. So he's not waiting for the HR to say, hey, Ranga, are you going for lunch? Take him around. So he's already finding people. He's probably found a long lost cousin or a friend's friend in that process. Oh, do you work here? Oh, I know Raman. He used to work here and stuff like that. So this, when we took to the market, not only India and internationally, there was a big surge around, oh, okay. So you're brightening up the day. You'll go back and say, I knew 100 people today, right? And the next day becomes much better. So this is truly cross-pollinating from another thing. The second thing, if I can take about 15 minutes and kind of extend it, is we provide background screening services to about 200 countries today, right? One of the offering. India is a big market for us. One of the things that we found was specifically around address checks, because all the organization has a very stringent address check that we needed to do. So we have feet in the ground, we have in about 100 cities, so we had people, we have our own employees going, finding the address, they needed to get the phone number of the people, and then we had a quality team who called back and checked, did they come and do the address and stuff like that. Now, we are now dependent on a manual process to do this, because it's now becomes the integrity of the person. You could have an app, you could have a GPS, you could have several things, but it was not working. There was flaws in the system, and if you're a background screening company, you be bloody right on what you're doing. Otherwise, the repercussion of the customer is very high for the customer and his customer, right? So we thought through a very cross-pollinated process. We used the Indian postal system for it. We knew that the speed post, thanks to maybe the Britishers, reaches every nook and corner. Okay, so we tied up with the Indian postal systems. We told them very simple, we will give you, so we had the envelope. So inside the envelope, we will have a code with the address that needs to be address verified. So once the kind of the post reaches, and the Indian postal system will give it only to the addressee. For example, if it's his father's name, candidate's father's name, it will be handed over only to them, or somebody has to go and pick it up. Once he picks it up and it's delivered, we will call to do a quality check. We'll call and check, is the code 13456. So he has to open it and the code. So we know it is, for example, Ranga who's received it, and the code is this, and the address is where he's residing. So we kind of worked around, cross-pollinated what was already existing from a postal system into making one of the sub-process of a process more robust and not making it very manual, right? Eliminating errors. So a couple of examples where I thought real life HR process cross-pollination, how did we do it?
Good. For one, somebody is leveraging the post offices to better effect, if I can say that. Aarthi, as a HR leader, how easy it is to bring two minds to cross-pollinate in an organization? Or should I say, how tough is it, depending on the context?
Yeah, I think that's something that's purely culture dependent. So in my experience at Bero, I found it very, very easy. That's also probably because we're a small company. We're only 10 years old. 95% of Bero is millennials. So we're very, very open to change. We're a fairly agile organization. So it's been easy. But to imagine something like this to happen in some of the previous organizations that I worked with, I would imagine it would definitely be tougher, because you need a business case, you need to establish ROI, etc.
But if I can quickly ask, how much aware is your millennial workforce about the bell curve?
At Bero, we don't have that practice at all.
You don't
so
have
thankfully,
bell curve. Okay,
not
good.
at all. So yeah, I think that's something that's purely culture dependent. And if anyone can establish, a business case out of it, then why not?
Pramad, you lead a business, and you would be knowing, typically your sales function does a sales pitch and you execute something. Clients typically have a conventional method of thinking, saying that if there is something that needs to be done, you better go by the norms defined in my industry, go by what is set as a precedent. More often than not, clients would not be too open to change, too open to kind of pick something from another industry and put it in their industry to see how it is. For example, I was trying to bring a lot of, for an automobile services company, the need was pushing sales. So we tried actually bringing in a lot of sales people into the organization to drive the sales and also manage the operations. It had mixed response, primarily because the leadership was not subscribing to that idea at all. They said, let's not contaminate the cart of apples with a few oranges, if I may say so. So how do you face that from a business operating perspective?
I think the good thing, at least for us, is because we work in a sector which is very hot and exciting. And analytics itself is pretty much the new frontier. And a lot of clients that we work with, we see there's a lot of overlap which is happening or convergence in how they do things. So, since you mentioned automobiles, if all of us pick up the cars that we drive today, they pretty much have supercomputers built into them. They are able to sense, what's the proximity that you have when you reverse. There's a beep which goes off. And of course, we're all reading about, and I'm sure several of us have seen driverless cars as well. And of course, the whole thing around Internet of Things. So, the moment you actually get into your car, it is possible that there is a sensor which is telling you that, hey, your fuel level is coming down, and that talks to your GPS, and it's going to tell you that the next, fuel station that you have is about 30 miles away. So you need to figure out how to top up now before you set off, right? So that convergence of, an automobiles with technology is a theme that we see very, very often. And lots of times we find a lot of our clients are very, very curious to know about, you guys have solved a problem of this nature for somebody in a manufacturing or an automotive space. That's, we'd love to hear how that works, because
They're quite open is what you're saying.
Absolutely, because their minds are always working, on solving their problems. So they love to hear, clients are also looking for ideas, and, most ideas are not necessarily always original, right? I mean, ideas or cross-pollination is about finding inspiration in something that's already been done elsewhere.
Right. Thank you. I only hope your analytics helps the audience here. I'm sure most of you will agree how to predict the mood of your better half and possibly what breakfast works and what doesn't. I'm still trying to fathom that. Jokes apart, we'll quickly move on to Ranga. Ranga, you do a cross-pollinating service to your client. How important, or rather, how do you go about preparing your workforce for such an approach, for such a delivery to your client? In terms of
very important, because I have diverse workforce working across several engagements, right? It's not like one team executes 5 processes for a customer and then there's another team doing it. This could be across India versus USA, Europe. So at the end of the day, we need to collectively add value to all our customers, right? It's not that they are paying for something we don't. So what we do internally, we have a group called the value engineering, where we kind of ensure, and it is practiced, that we collectively, the leads meet to talk about what was done well in this process for that particular customer and how it can be leveraged for all the customers that we do, right? So we go back to so for example, we're doing something very different in exit for a particular customer, or we have found a tool, right, which is in a way industrialization, because we're trying to automate it. We go back to the other customer and say, hey, look, same industry, they're trying to do something like this. We have helped them. Would you guys want this? Because it will give you X business benefit. That could be dollar, that could be improvising your TAT, that could be improvising your process in a particular geography, and then take feedback and then implement it. So we have institutionalized it. We've kind of thought through it and created a forum where defined frequency across processes, across engagements, we are exchanging cross-pollinating ideas and how it can be better for each of the customer engagement that we're doing.
Thank you very much. I personally like the diversity on stage that we brought. 2 women and 2 gentlemen here. 2 HR professionals and 2 business leaders. Thank you very much for those quick thoughts and those precise thoughts. We will continue this learning journey through the rest of the day with the audience. I wish to personally thank Pramad, Aarthi and Ranga for having taken the time out and joining us at the People Agenda conference. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you,